What is up, guys? And today I'm going to be showing you the best budget $800 gaming PC for FPS games like Fortnite, Valorant, CSGO, and Call of Duty. So this is going to give you the best FPS and the best performance possible. So we're going to dive right into it. Let's go. So in this video, we're actually going to compare two different computers, one $800 pre-built computer and one $800 computer that you build yourself. In the end, I will show you guys both of my thoughts on pre-built and the build it yourself, and I'll share some of my thoughts and experiences on when I built my first computer and if you should as well. So enjoy. Okay, so let's get right into it and show you guys the build right here. So this is what the build looks like. Obviously, it is missing a GPU, which we'll talk about that later as well in the video. And don't worry, I will link every single part in the description down below, so check it out if you're looking to purchase any of these parts on the build it yourself computer. Alright, so starting off with the build it PC, we'll call it that. Yeah, I don't know why, we'll just call it that. So for the CPU, we're going to go with the Core i5-12600KF. This is a fantastic processor, very underrated budget CPU, coming at only $160, and it's a beast, to say the least. If you don't really know that much of PC terms, this thing is a 3.7 gigahertz processor, which is very good, and it's very high, and it can be boosted to much higher than that. I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head what it can be boosted to, but it's very good. It's a 10-core, 16-thread processor, very underrated, and it'll get you those high FPS in these FPS games and in competitive games, just like Fortnite. It'll get you super high frames really easily, and it's a fantastic budget processor. I would very much recommend this 100%. Now moving on to what will cool that very high-end CPU, in my opinion, is going to be the Cooler Master Hyper 212 Black Edition. Now you don't really need much, especially if you're on a budget, for CPU cooler. In my opinion, they all do very good depending on like how you use it. So this is actually going to be a very good CPU cooler for the price tag. It's coming at $55, and it's a solid CPU. There's not really much to talk about other than it's being a CPU cooler. It's pretty solid. This is the one that I would recommend. If you want, you can go with a liquid cooler or something else, but this is the personal one for you on a budget. Now the next part I want to go into is kind of a controversial part. This is the motherboard. So I picked up the ASRock Z690 Extreme ATX LGA 1700 motherboard. So this is about a $130 motherboard, but what the problem with this motherboard is yes, it supports the CPU, the LGA 1700 socket. That is the CPU for the Core i5. That's like the socket. That's how it, this little CPU chip will fit in the motherboard. But the problem with this is it's still on the old gen DDR4 RAM instead of the new gen DDR5. So you're going to have to go with DDR4, but DDR4 still works fantastic in this day and age. And if you're going to upgrade later on. But we're on a budget here, so we got to keep it in DDR4. But for the RAM, so we can move on right to the RAM, I picked out these Corsair Vengeance LPX 16GB 2 times 8GB sticks of DDR4 3200 megahertz memory. So of course you can go with 32 or even 64 on DDR4 because it's still old gen, I would consider. So it's up to you, but the cheapest, this is the cheapest option if you have to go with that $800 budget. If you're okay squeezing out, I would recommend trying to squeeze out to that 32 gigabytes. It'll be maybe around double the price, so it'll be around $80-90 for this. But this RAM is coming at $40, fantastic on a budget. And yeah, there's not really much else to say. There is no RGB lights on this though, which kind of sucks. To the next component on this computer, we have this Silicon Power A61TB M.2 NVMe solid state drive, also known as an SSD. This comes in at about $60 retail price. So you don't really need anything special for the SSD. If you want to go for something more high-end, obviously you can. It's what I would recommend personally for this $800 build, and I'll link this in the description down below. Now moving on to the GPU, obviously it's not on screen there, but I picked out one on Newegg. I found a very good RX 5700 XT 8GB graphics card. So this is a fantastic budget graphics card. Right now this says it is on sale for $200. It might be a little bit more, maybe around closer to $250, but it's a fantastic budget GPU. Obviously, there's fantastic GPUs out there. This is my personal favorite out of all of them. Just in terms of price to performance, this is fantastic. I've heard a lot of reviews. A lot of people said that's a fantastic GPU, especially if you're just looking for those pure FPS on games like Fortnite, Call of Duty, and etc. And you're not necessarily looking for graphics. AMD card is going to do very well. Now, two other cards that I do really love is the RTX 3060 and the RTX 2070 Super. The reason why the RTX 3060 isn't my number one recommended on this list is because the RX 5700 XT just outperforms in terms of FPS. So yeah, there's not really much to say. And obviously the 2070 Super is around the same. The RX 5700 XT also beats that out as well. But those are also two very good budget GPUs. Now, in terms of finding those, I will try and link some in the description if I can find some. But I would recommend hopping on the used marketplace, something like Facebook Marketplace or even JAWA. Moving on to the final part to this build it yourself PC. This is going to be a power supply that I used in a previous video, the $500 PS5 versus PC video. This is the Corsair RM750E 2023 750 watt 80 plus gold power supply. I love this thing because I like the upgrade pathway to it. It's a great investment, especially if you're going to upgrade in the future. You won't have to spend even more money on getting a power supply, so you can just get it done and over with. It's $100, so it's not that bad, but it's a fantastic power supply that I 100% recommend. And if you don't want to go for that, if you want to just save money and you're not really looking to upgrade for a very, very long time, then I recommend going for something like a 600 to 650 watt power supply. These should be a little bit cheaper, coming around 60, 70 bucks, but this is $100. This is very much worth it purchasing it, and I love it. So I would recommend getting this power supply over anything else. To conclude this build it yourself computer, all these parts are going to come up to cost you about $807.82 USD. So yes, a little bit pricey. It's $800. You know, it's a fantastic PC, and in my opinion, it's worth a lot more than $800. I think in terms of FPS and price to performance, you can be getting a lot more with this build here. So I'd recommend getting most of these parts on screen. Obviously, if you disagree with some things, then you could switch them out and it would still probably work perfectly. But in my opinion, I would go into the PC part picker to see whatever you're switching out, just to make sure that everything is still compatible with each other. Because if it's not compatible and you buy them and it doesn't work out, well, that's a big no-no. So now let's move on to what the pre-built PC has to offer. Alright, so now moving into this $800 pre-built gaming PC, I was able to find a couple different options, a couple on Amazon and one on Newegg. So we're going to discuss these three different computers, which one is my personal favorite, and in the end, what you should do, if you should build this $800 budget gaming computer, or if you should buy the pre-built, and if the pre-built is more worth it. So let's go. Alright, so the first of three computers that we're going to be looking at is the STG Auburn Gaming Desktop PC. So this is the first pre-built. It is an Intel Core pre-built, and this comes in at $700 USD. So let's check out the specs. So in this, it has a Core i7-10700F. This was actually my old CPU from my computer. I did upgrade to a Core i5-14600KF recently. I have two videos on both of those running in Fortnite. So this is a 2.9 gigahertz base clock speed CPU, so not bad. But if you compare it to the one that I built, the i5-12600KF does outperform it at a decent margin. Now this comes in with a Radeon RX 6600, which I don't love this card, I'm not gonna lie. I don't think it's that great, especially like on a budget. There's just better cards like the RTX 3060 I like, or even the 5700 XT I'd probably recommend over this card. I just don't think it's that great of a card, and it's an 8GB card, but I just don't love it that much. It comes in with 16GB of DDR4 RAM, a terabyte of SSD. So both for the RAM and the SSD, we don't know what brand SSD it is, and we don't know if it's just one stick of DDR4 or if it's two 8GB sticks. So those are two very different things. Obviously, two 8GB sticks of DDR4 is better than just one 16, but we can't really see after looking at the photos, but I guess we just have to hope that it's two 8GB sticks. So this does come with a Wi-Fi motherboard. Comes in with 6 fans on the case, which is pretty nice. And also comes up with a mouse pad, a mouse, a speaker, a gaming keyboard, and a quote-unquote gaming keyboard and a headset. I wouldn't recommend using these peripherals. They're probably just e-waste pretty much, but hey, you can try them out. So that is the first one. Of course, this computer is going to be linked in the description down below for you to check it out. All right, now moving on to the second computer, we got this Skytech Gaming Nebula pre-built gaming PC. So this comes in at $750 USD, and this holds some pretty good components. I'm not even gonna lie. It holds a Core i5-13400F. This is a 2.5 gigahertz processor, but it can be put up quite a bit. So obviously not as good as the 10700F, but it's actually still a pretty good processor, especially for a budget. It'll still run Fortnite with decent FPS. This also comes with an NVIDIA RTX 3050. Now, the 3050 is very much frowned upon in the PC universe, just because it's not that good. It was a really bad GPU at launch, and it's never been that great. So if your budget allows, then I would sub that 3050, try and sell it online, and pick up either a used 3060 or a used 5700 XT and try and get, the best deal you can off of either of those cards, and they should work pretty well. For your SSD, you have 1 terabyte of NVMe SSD. It doesn't specify what brand it is, but it is 1 terabyte. It's got 16 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM, and I believe this is dual channel RAM. So you're going to have those two 8 gig sticks, and this goes up to 3200 megahertz. It's a 600 watt gold, 80 plus gold, I believe, power supply. And it is on Windows 11. So it's actually a really worth it computer, in my opinion. Now you can even change this to have a 3060 already in it, but that means you're going to have to substitute with a Ryzen 5 3600, or maybe that's a Ryzen 3 3600, but I just recommend keeping the 3050, selling it, and then buying another card off the used marketplace. You might have to pay $50 extra for it, so then you're at that right perfect $800 budget right there. So now let's move on to the final one. Now, they always say you save the best for the last, and for the last computer, we have off of Newegg. What's good about Newegg is you can see the FPSs in most games, so we'll see all the FPSs in Call of Duty, Counter-Strike, Fortnite, and Valorant on this computer. But this is a well-respected brand. This is a Yayan Yumi gaming PC. So it is a desktop gaming PC, and this holds a Intel Core i5-12400F in it with an RTX 4060, a beast of a graphics card. As well, it does have 1 terabyte of NVMe SSD. Of course, we don't know the brand, but it's a 1 terabyte SSD. 16 gigabytes of DDR4, and Newegg is known for having that dual channel RAM, and this comes in at a speed rate of 3200 megahertz. 650 watt power supply, 80 plus gold, and it comes in pre-installed Windows 11. So it's actually a pretty good PC, probably the best in my opinion out of all these three. This comes in at $800 on the dot. But in terms of FPS, let's take a look at it here. So in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, you're going to be getting average around 110 FPS on 1080p settings. For games like Fortnite, you'll get around 85 FPS on 1080p epic settings. So not really sure what the competitive settings are, but that's actually like pretty good. I don't see CSGO 195 FPS and Valorant 285 FPS. So not bad on the FPS, is pretty good. And then, well, 4K gaming, it's going to be a lot difficult to run 4K on this computer. But otherwise, it's actually a pretty solid computer. So yeah, I'd recommend it. Alright, so to finally finish off, what would I personally recommend? Well, after my first experiences building a computer myself, it was a lot more difficult than what some people pan it out to be. Like, it was not easy whatsoever. It took me a couple days actually to build it. So I did have a couple Wi-Fi issues, which really kind of set a bad mood for me about this. But to be honest, I would definitely do it again, but I would do less of a build. Like I would just do an upgrade. I wouldn't completely build a brand new computer, but it was fun. I did learn so many things about building a computer. What I would what I would recommend is you do it with a friend. You guys both, if you guys are both buying a computer, I would recommend doing it together, because that would make the experience a lot more fun, in my opinion, and a lot better. And I would, that'd be, just a lot cooler. And I think building with a friend is just gonna make it 10 times better. But in the end, if you don't want to go through so much hassle of building it and countless hours time spent building it, then go for the pre-built. But if you're like, yeah, I'm gonna build this, I'm gonna be able to build this, then go for the build. Now, in terms of what's better, the build is definitely better, but the pre-built is a fantastic option as well. So pretty much all you're paying for is the pre-built, is the amount it takes these guys wherever they're at to build it. So yeah, that's it. That'll be a wrap. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.